this thing about the SEC, kasi Rappler, Maria Reza says that the SEC upheld order to shut down Rappler. Now, medyo, I have to confess, I'm ignorant about the role of the SEC in shutting down media. Kasi parang sabi ko, medyo, I don't get it. How does this happen?
Well, baka lang yan sa inaccurate reporting. Because I trust that the SEC knows also the boundaries of its powers. Wala namang poder ang SEC to shut down any media outlet. The only authority of SEC is to say whether or not registered ka or you can exist as a corporation. Even if that's the case, kahit hindi ka korporasyon, hindi naman kinakailangan korporasyon ka to exercise your freedom of expression. Hindi naman kinakailangan korporasyon ka para magsalita publicly. Diba? So siguro it will just make it more inconvenient for them, but it does not amount to a shutdown kung sinabi ng SEC na i-revoke ang kanilang registration.
The rest of the small stations all over the country are dependent on blocktimer. Without the blocktimer, wala silang kita talaga. Now, I pointed out in my column that if this situation prevails, the big boys become the monopolies.
Well, ganun yung mangyari dyan, Sito. But even the big boys, diba, they also have their own block times. Meaning, yeah. So it's all over, actually.
Okay, tatamaan din sila. Okay, Professor Arao, anong imong masasabi, sir?
Yeah, based on what Mr. Basbanyo mentioned, it will effectively shut down certain news media organizations, certain radio and TV stations that are not able to comply with the NTC order. And that 50% seems to have been plucked out of thin air. What's the basis for it? And sometimes you cannot help but think as to whether or not a particular news media organization is being targeted, given, I understand, its ongoing negotiations with other news media organizations to make its presence felt in other stations. We refer here to ABS-CBN. We have to relate, Sito, the lack of due process with the NTC right now with the lack of due process that happened with the shutdown of selected websites. Of course, I'm a party in interest here because I'm the associate editor of Bulatlat and columnist of Pinoy Weekly, two of the websites that were ordered shut down by the NTC based on a letter request from the National Security Council. So, of course, we also need to incorporate the, essentially the shutdown or the proposed impending shutdown of Rappler, given the news that the SEC has already decided regarding the revocation of its registration. So this particular scenario is clearly an attack on media, which is very unfortunate as we are, practically in the twilight of the Duterte administration, and we're now slowly transitioning to the Marcos administration. We don't want that to happen, and we hope that all media groups, including the KBP, would be united in opposing all attacks on media, not just this particular, these two NTC memoranda, but we have to look at the context in which these things are happening.
In the 90s and early 2000, we all began to talk about media management. Kumbaga, okay, media was wild, wild west, very liberal, very unrestrained. But towards the 90s, after martial law, after all of the conflicts of media and government, everybody started realizing, hey, we can manage media. Whether it's our media or their media, we can manage it. But mukhang ngayon, hindi na media management, shut down or buy out.
Yeah. That's a good point. And whether it's a shutdown or a buyout, we leave that to, the internal mechanisms within self-regulation to determine. For example, if a media organization would decide to shut down, it should be on its own terms. It's not because of impositions by the government, because that would be bad for the practice of journalism. Actually, not just journalism, that would be bad for the practice of media in general. So that includes journalism, advertising and public relations, and entertainment. So that's why we have to contextualize properly everything that's happening right now. The NTC can always say that there's no reason to panic because it's still a draft memorandum and that there will be consultations. But the bottom line here, Sito, is that there is already a pattern of toward normalizing repression. They want to say that this is something regular. This is something that government should be doing for the sake of the people. But what we lose here would be more than just simply the convenience of regulation, because we don't want normalization of repression. So that's the long and short of it.
I think Professor Arao wanted to make a last point. Professor?
Yeah, let us address the bigger elephant in the room right now, which is press freedom. We all know that there was a shutdown of ABS-CBN 2 years ago, and ABS-CBN, unfortunately for the government, still exists right now. And they want to further shut down and clamp down on the operations based on media reports that ABS-CBN wants to engage in certain blocktime arrangements with at least two news media organizations. So we have to look at it that way in light of the attacks against Rappler, as well as the shutdown of selected websites, including Bulatlat and Pinoy Weekly. And let's not forget, Sito, the red tagging still continues within the ranks of the media. So the attack should stop, and it will only stop not because the government says so, but because we are doing the pushback against the powers that be. So we have to continue speaking truth to power, especially now that we're transitioning to an administration headed by the son of the dictator. So we have to keep that mindset as well.